Happy Tuesday, everybody. I hope you are doing great. Today, I have an interesting and unusual recipe for you, and we're actually going to be using kale stems as a main ingredient. It sounds kind of crazy. Last week when I was making this, what happened is I had that big kind of really gnarly kale stems, and they were really big and kind of tough, and I knew that Cheryl was going to pick them out if I sauteed them up in the kale. So what I wanted to do is then make some kind of pesto-ish thing out of it. And I decided to go ahead and go one step further and make it creamy. Since the stems are going to be kind of fibrous, I wanted to have a little bit of fat to kind of make it all go together well. So today I have little bitty baby kale almost. So if you have very small stems, you're probably not going to need to do the cooking ahead of time. But with the larger ones, I found that they were a little bit bitter. And so I wanted to go ahead and cook them. So I just steamed them in the Instant Pot with the cashews today for about 5 minutes on high. You could totally steam this any way you wanted. You can steam it on the stove, steam it in a rice steamer, however creative you want to be. And if you want to, you guys can tell me how you usually steam vegetables and what appliance you might be using. And that helps me know what to talk about and to tell you more about later on. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to where you can see the ingredients. So this is that's what was in my Instant Pot. And there's maybe a cup of water, maybe like half an inch of water down there. I pressed it in, obviously. I pulled it out so that I wouldn't pull it out and make a big giant mess in front of you. And the cashews, I went ahead and cooked those. I do like to steam them often because I don't always soak my cashews. So if you could soak your cashews and not steam them, right? And these kale stems are really beautiful and they're tiny. So and literally this was one of the bigger leaves. So what I do, and this helps me prep for the rest of the week too. So when I get my CSA, I go ahead and I pull off the greens just like that, right? And then what I'm going to do with this is all the leaves from what I used today. And so I'm just going to use this colander. I'm going to go ahead and rinse it well and dry it. And then I'm going to put it in a reclosable container in the fridge. And I'm going to line that with a paper towel just to kind of help keep it dry. And also Dawn has gone ahead and put up the link to this recipe. So you can check that out too. So that way, when you come home, you're just ready to saute kale or to put it in a salad. And it's going to stay fresher when it's in a nice closed container. One thing I do like to do, how do I dry it? This is actually a salad spinner. So I spin it pretty dry, and then if it still seems like it's got a little moisture, I'll spread it out on a clean kitchen towel and I'll roll it up. And then I'll try and get the water out that way. But also having a paper towel on the bottom. If you buy those big containers of spinach and mixed greens and things like that, that are in the big, where's my other hand? Oh, there it is. Okay. It's hard doing it this way. The big ones. And they're clear. And if you wash them gently, and you can't put them in the dishwasher, you can wash them with a little soap. Dry them out, let them dry thoroughly, and line those with paper towels. Oftentimes, those will keep your greens well. And I always keep one to put lettuce in that I might grow. So that's this. And that's why you would want to do it. And so what I ended up with the other day was this giant pile of stems. So with those, I chose not to steam them. And steaming them, I tasted one of these already, and it definitely tasted a little less bitter just from a little bit of steaming. And I'm probably making about a half batch because this bag and bunch of kale it was mostly made up of like these things. So there was actually I could have put some of the stem in, but with this big stem, I probably would want to peel it just like I would a broccoli stem. And I decided, let's not chance that with you guys. So I'll try it and I'll give you some ideas. Have any of you guys used the big stems that have lots of leaves still attached to it? to make anything. And if you have, let me know. And another thing this can be good for, so I got some that were a little old, right? So you can kind of see that yellowishness. Now I don't have to ditch this whole piece of kale, but some of them were all the way yellow. So the stem was still pretty good. So the leaves that were bad, I just tore off and got rid of and steamed the stems, right? So, and that's just another way you can try and save a little bit of produce before it's gone. With this, so at this point, I'm going to kind of make it creamy just with the cashews because that has some oil in there already. It's a fat that's natural. If you are on a no oil diet and you can't have nuts, you could do steamed cauliflower or potatoes to kind of get a creamier texture. So that would probably help too. And if you're watching, say hi and tell me what appliances you have or what appliance is your favorite to play with right now. So I'm going to put a little bit of water, probably about a quarter cup. I'm going to try a little bit and then see if it's enough, since I'm doing it slightly different than the recipe. I'm going to put a little bit of nutritional yeast in there because it especially helped when it tasted a little more bitter. So if you want to, you can wait and add this later or leave it out completely. I also, the Instant Pot's my favorite too. That's why I used it today. I use it pretty much every day. So once again, you're going to see my handy dandy granulated garlic that I like to use. And so remember, it's not some weird chemical garlic. It is garlic that's been dried and dehydrated and ground up. So I'm going to put a little bit in that. If you had some roasted garlic, you could throw a couple of cloves in there. I think you could use fresh cloves, but it's going to make it pretty sharp, which if the kale stems are sharp, it could be not as awesome for you. That's just my opinion. Now, for the recipe, I used fresh rosemary. Well, I'm out of fresh rosemary. And I'm going to kind of show you, this is just regular dried rosemary, right? So when we're talking about fresh rosemary, one of these would be a leaf. So I used about 10 leaves like this. And normally with this, I'd probably use about 5. I don't like to use this dry rosemary because I think it's real pokey and it kind of pokes me in my mouth and that makes my meals unpleasant. So I don't know if any of you guys have an issue with rosemary or dried rosemary in particular, or have a picky eater with textures, because that's also going to be a problem. So even if you just have this, you can ground it up. And that's one of the reasons I use this ground rosemary in so many of my recipes. So it's still got that wonderful earthy pine-like aroma, and it actually is stronger than the other. So you're going to use a little bit less. I'm going to use like a pinch to start off with. And I didn't bring over any salt. Obviously, if you're eating salt-free, don't put salt in it. Or you might want to go ahead and put maybe a little onion powder or a little more garlic powder to kind of give it a little bit of that bite. You could also put in just a tad of dried mustard, and I think that would be really good too. So I used this on some pasta when I made it. So when the pasta started drying out the sauce a little bit, we'll see how far this goes. I think I need more water. So when I was doing the pasta and it started drying out, even though I had made this with water, I went ahead and added some unsweetened non-dairy milk to it. So I love unsweetened soy milk, and you can get that organic really easily. So I'm going to blend, so forgive me. I'm going to go ahead and add just a little more liquid. I think I underestimated. And you kind of have to go off of really whatever you have in here and how it's choosing to blend. So the recipe instructions are always as close as they can get, but maybe you put a little more kale in, or maybe your cashews aren't as soft. So there's all these different reasons that you might need other measurements. So always be willing to add a little extra liquid as you need it. See how much easier that's working? I think that's probably about good enough. Let's take a look. You know, it's still a little chunkier than what I would like it to be. I think you guys can see that here. It's not bad. It's just, I think it could be nicer. And sometimes making it nicer is just a matter of either adding a little more liquid, which we probably could still do a little more, because see, it's very thick and pesto-y. If I'm going to use that on as a dip, that might be the consistency that I'd want to keep. But since I'm still going with the idea we're going to use this on pasta, it can be a little more thinned out. So let's add a little bit more water. One thing, if you're working with stuff that you're actually cooking on the stove or in the Instant Pot, if you add a little too much water, you can always cook it out. And the same thing would kind of be, oh, what machine am I using? Hi, Nita. I'm actually just using a Ninja, just kind of an inexpensive, it's Auto IQ with Smooth Boost. It's not Smoothie Boost. I also have a Vitamix. I just like to try this. I'm actually going to be trying a new blender soon from GoWise as well. So I'm trying to find some blenders that aren't as expensive as the KitchenAid and test those with most of my recipes. Okay, so it's going to get loud again for a minute. Pretty close. And one of the things I often do that I wish I didn't do is I give up blending too soon. Yeah. And I don't know if you can kind of see the difference. So you can see the residue on the spatula compared to this really creamy sauce that we see here. So again, a lot of it is just doing things as you go and really recognizing that today's kale may be a little different than yesterday's or last week's kale. And just think of what your goal result is. And see, this is so smooth and it's almost fluffy. And this will be great on pasta. This could still be like a really good spread. So if you're not eating any fat at all, if you're on some special diets, especially like Chef AJ's Ultimate Weight Loss, you wouldn't be able to have cashews. But you could make the same thing with cauliflower. And then you could maybe use it as a spread on a piece of sweet potato toast, like a regular sweet potato sliced in the toaster to make faux bread. And if you are not on any dietary restrictions, you can do like I did and put this all over white pasta. And it was delicious and creamy, and Cheryl didn't complain and had no idea that she was eating kale stems. So it's kind of exciting. I've got some red Russian kale that I have in the fridge now that I'm going to kind of play around with and see what kind of colors we can come up with. I wasn't quite ready to spring purple pasta sauce on Cheryl. But if you try it, please let me know if you use something different. I'm sure this would work with collard stems. I would be careful about some, yeah, she does know. I told her after she ate it because she really liked it. And it's very interesting, kind of this whole concept of making basically the base of a recipe from something that you would normally either throw away or put in your compost. So it's just one more way when you're buying organic kale and spending a little bit more money that you're actually still getting an extra dish out of that too. And it's full of fiber. So it's really good for you, and it's green veggies, and you can make it like macaroni and cheese, add a little bit extra nutritional yeast, and maybe just a little bit of non-dairy milk, unsweetened, plain, into the pasta, and it really gave kind of a creamy consistency like that. Have any of you guys tried cooking with like leftover vegetables, kind of, what is it? They say top to root or something, I think. So it's kind of like the vegan way of eating everything. So obviously we don't want to eat everything. Some things we can't eat, and we need to just be okay with that. But the things that we can, why not push it a little bit further? So let me know what your favorite dish is right now, what you're cooking up. I'd love to know. Tell me what your favorite appliance is. And I'd also love to know, if you've made anything with like kale stems or collard stems by themselves. And if so, what was it? What would you like to make? What ideas are you coming up with? And maybe I can take some of those ideas and make them for you in recipe form. So also one last announcement is that this Saturday, April 21st at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm doing a beginning Instant Pot class. There's information about it in the comments. If you click on the link in the comments, you'll get $5 off, and that'll make it $30. If you can't be there live, it's going to be available after that. So if you attend live, you can ask questions while the class is being filmed. And you won't be on film. It'll just be me and food, just like this is. And then you can watch it as many times as you want. We're going to do very beginner things, talk about the Instant Pot parts. We're going to do some chai. We're going to do some oatmeal. We're going to do a 1-pot lentil and rice dish. And then I'm just going to make up some soup with whatever I find in my fridge. So that way you'll know how to do that too. So, if you have any questions about that, let me know, and hopefully I'll get to see you at that class too, or next week at my Tuesday Live. Thanks a lot, guys, and have a great week.